morning.
Good
I am so
morning.
glad that we're here.
I know.
I'm Dr. Dana, and you are Laura.
That's
and
right.
we are here to talk about, today just going to talk about starting a business because we probably should have started that
I
from
know.
day one.
I know.
But it's something that we just assume like, hey, we're running businesses
Right.
and anybody who wants to be a woman and run a business, hey, follow along with us. But
Right.
man, it's way harder than just that.
I know. And I was thinking for a future podcast, we need to also talk about funding. How are we going to get funding? And I want to save that because you and I are still right in the midst of trying to get more funding and looking for grants and what is actually out there for women. Because we know there's stuff out there,
Right.
but we're still in the midst of discovering all that. So we'll share that once we kind of figure out something.
I think that's a great idea because we
Yeah.
always hear there's funding. Is there really funding or do we just hear that there's funding?
Exactly.
So
I don't know. I
I
don't
know.
know. I'm in the middle of that, so I'll let you know.
That sounds good. That sounds good.
Well, it was funny because on the way here, John was talking, my husband, about starting a business and what it takes, and because my son is wanting to start a business, and I was like, this is some really, really good stuff that people probably don't realize about starting a business. Organizing yourself and what to expect and what not to expect, and don't get your hopes up.
True.
Yeah. So, and I was telling you, I said, the thing is I said, most people don't make money on a business for 3 to 5 years, and that's honestly the truth.
Right.
And I'm like, except you're making great money. And then, but the reality is that no, you guys have been doing this for a long,
Right.
long. I mean, Jeff's been doing cooking for decades.
Right.
You've been a teacher with a lot of education and experience behind you for decades. So it's like, no, you just compiled all of that and were able to go.
Right. And even in that, like it's changed over time,
Oh
because
yeah,
here's where it was in 2019 and then in 2020 and then you feel like, oh, we're kind of starting all over again here in 2021. And then, so where does it really stop and start? And, where do you calculate, oh, now I'm making some money finally? What? You know, um, I always feel like that perseverance, just keep going.
you
And
just
then
keep going.
at some point you're like, oh, I am making money. Oh, this might be successful. And then the next day you wake up and say, my God, I don't have any money and I'm not successful and I don't know what I'm doing and I need to go back to work for whatever.
Well, here, if this makes you feel better. So last week, I did an order for a company that's here in Branson. So just kind of a backstory. The owners actually live in Chicago. Their business is here in Branson, and they had another business in Orlando, which,
Wow.
logistically, how did it work? I don't know, but they were doing this thing. And it was funny because it's a husband and wife. So you're husband and wife,
Right.
I'm husband and wife. And he was just talking about the realities of how hard this has been for them, especially this year. They started out this year, first 5 months of the year, in the negative.
Mm.
And it's like, you've had a lease for 10 years in one spot and they're at the landing. So, that rent is really expensive
Right.
and you've got to be doing really good business to go for 10 years. And he said after 5 months, they're like, I don't know if we can renew our lease.
Right.
And then it picked up.
Right.
And so, then you keep going. But we had that conversation about it's so hard to do all of this. And, it's like, do you keep going? Do you not keep going? What do you do? But then he said something that I was just like, you have allowed so much grace into your life. And this is what we need in our life. He said, regardless if the business ever continued or not, we have been successful and we are successful business owners. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he's
Yeah.
right. Just because if a business ends doesn't mean you failed.
True.
You're still successful. And
True.
I'm like, wow, that really hit home to me.
Right.
Like, okay, how do we define as success? So, because if success is a measure of if our business makes it or doesn't make it, what if we want to sell our business or retire from our business?
Right.
Are we now a failure because we don't have that business?
Oh, that's a good thought.
Oh,
Right.
no, we're still successful. So,
Or if you sell it to somebody who doesn't run it, now are you a failure? Right.
yeah, and
Right.
it doesn't survive.
Right.
Like, did you set them up for failure because
Right.
you were doing it fine and now they're not doing it fine? And
Mhm.
I know of businesses that were very successful, sold, and then that transition didn't turn out too well.
True.
So, but that doesn't make you or
No.
that business a failure.
No.
And it doesn't necessarily mean the people who purchased it were a failure. Maybe it's just something that they weren't prepared for.
True.
I don't know. But back to starting the business.
Well, and I was going to say too, depending on how you view success, like I remember, because I was teaching and we were doing this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to work this weekend. This is awesome. We're going to make a little bit of money this weekend,
Yeah.
right? And then someone's like, okay, we're going to work 2 times this week, and then 3 times this week, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're working 5 times this week. This is
Yes.
pretty exciting, to where
Yeah.
we were to the point of like, hey, you don't need to teach anymore. This is becoming successful. But I remember thinking 1 time was successful,
Right.
and then 3 times is successful, and then 5 times is successful. It just progresses with you.
Yeah.
And then we're almost to a point that, like, okay, all of this is really successful, but we need some time to be on the boat. We need some time to have a vacation. So now it's successful to see if it can run itself. So
Right.
you don't have to be there.
Right.
But I would have never thought those things when we first started, like,
Sure.
oh, let me take a vacation before we ever get started.
Right.
Right. And so I think we have to be able to give ourselves permission to enjoy the steps that we're on as we go.
Yeah.
And nobody mapped out those steps to me.
No, 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 no. No, and those are things you think about. Like
Mhm.
for us with a brick and mortar and, not having consistent employees, we just can't, there's no day off.
Right.
There's no, we're going to take a vacation. Who's going to answer email? Who's going to answer the phone? Oh, who's answering the door to make
Right.
sales while we're gone? Nobody, it's us.
No,
So it's like, then we talked about that also, like, oh, I'm going to start a business so I can be, free and do what I want. But really, are we free and doing what we want?
no.
We're tied just down just as much as if we worked for an employer. In
Right.
fact, we do better as an employer, as an employee, because we get paid time off in the whole 9 yards.
Right.
We get
That's
none of
true.
that here.
No. No, there's no paid time off.
No.
No.
So,
And even when we do go on trips, I'm answering email and answering text and
yeah.
taking pictures and posting on social media. I mean, I eat, sleep, dream, live, breathe.
Yeah.
The Rogue Chef.
Yeah, absolutely you do. I know, like, it's funny because, like, emails, it's so nice on the phone. Delete, delete, delete. Okay, save for later, delete, delete. And it's like, how many times a day are you actually on your phone and you're like, oh, better check that email?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's a several times a day.
Yeah.
Several times a
I
day.
know. I had to take my phone to Verizon, and I said, look, I realize I use my phone quite a bit. And he says, this says you average 8 to 10 hours a day on your phone. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. And he's like, an average of 8 to 10 hours a day. And I'm like, yeah, I run a business. He's like, nobody's on their phone that long. I'm like, clearly you work for Verizon and you're not running your own business. But let
Exactly.
me tell you, the people who are running Verizon, who started all this, that they were
Yeah.
doing things like this.
Absolutely, they were.
Yeah, you just
So-
don't realize it.
When you guys decided to start a business, what did you do? Did you do an LLC? Did you do a partnership? How did you guys actually set up your business?
So I'm going to be honest, you know more about this than I know about this
Yeah.
because when we looked at it, we asked you. And we were in a situation, where a brick and mortar had started, and then we wanted to start just this private chef, this entity where, we would take food to places and cook. And so rather than rely on my own knowledge, which is none, or starting a business, like, I don't know, I've taught school for 26 years. I have a doctorate degree in education. They do not teach you in any education classes, even at the University of Missouri in doctorate school. They don't say, hey, here's how to start your own business, because that's not what you're there for.
Right.
You're there for education and to
Right.
teach people. And so you don't know. But we just hired an attorney, and the attorney said, here's my accountant, hire the accountant,
Yeah.
and the money that you put in the front door to pay the attorney and the accountant will make sure that everything is set up correctly.
Yes.
And they did set us up as an LLC. And then as we progressed, the accountant says, oh, wait a minute, you're making this or you're doing this, we have to change you to an S Corp. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, whatever that means.
Yeah.
And
that was probably just for tax purposes.
It is
You're
for
still an
tax purpose.
LLC, but
Yeah.
you report taxes as an S.
But I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Are we like the Rogue Chef Corp? I don't understand, So I don't understand it all. and I say that in transparency because somebody will listen to this and like, what? You don't have it all together? Please, no, I don't. I'm telling you, like, no, I don't know because I'm learning and learning and learning.
Yeah.
And even if you go on Google, like, tell me how to start a business, yeah, it might break it down to step 1, 2, 3, 4. But in reality, until you're walking those steps, experiencing those steps, you don't know.
No, I think you just gave the best advice. I went to an attorney and I got an accountant.
Mm.
Absolutely, get your ducks in a row because not everybody's going to want an LLC
Right.
and not everyone's going to qualify for an S corp. But an attorney is going to help map the direction that you need to go. And it's funny because I'm starting that next business
Right.
with a whole different set of owners with me. And so I took one of the gals with me. I said, we're going to go meet the attorney and we're just going to go and we're going to talk about setting up an an LLC. So we went in, we did the whole meeting. We talked about this. And the attorney brought up, she's like, not only do you need that LLC, you're going to have a separate partnership agreement, to figure out like, how much percentage of funds goes to operating and this and that. And so we had this whole discussion of how we were going to set all of it up and what I needed to get ready for the next meeting when we start actually drawing up contracts. And we walked away and my friend was like, I literally had no idea. I have no idea what you guys were talking about. And I'm like, that's okay. Because the first step was, let's go see the attorney. And then she started asking questions. I said, that second step is our accountant. And she's like, oh, I said, none of us will touch the money.
Right.
There will be a third party person who's going to take care of all of that. And then you will have money just magically appear in your account because they are going to take care of that as well. And so, her having no background in having a business, just knowing this is something she wanted to do, and I'm inviting her along on the journey, that's your first steps.
It is.
Because you want to protect yourself and your assets. So get the professionals. Let them handle all that. Do you have to pay money to do all that? Yes, you have to pay them money.
Yep.
And it's not cheap.
No.
But again, how much 10 years down the road you didn't get your ducks in a row? It's a lot cheaper to do it at the beginning than at the end when you
Sure.
got to defend yourself to the IRS.
Oh, right. And
Yeah.
You don't get to defend yourself to the IRS. They just say, you owe this money. And you're like, yes, 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 yes.
Yeah,
Let me
yeah.
write a check. Like,
I'm not built for prison.
No. Oh, God. Me either.
So I think that our best advice is let the professionals help you.
Absolutely.
You know,
And really, in the end, you're paying them, like you said, far less. And they understand it. They went to school to do it. They put businesses together all the time. And they'll even tell you, this happens with businesses all the time. I see it right here in Branson.
Yeah.
So don't worry, I gotcha. And
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah.
They gotcha. And they will take care of you.
Absolutely.
They will.
They will. And it's funny because in nursing school, they always say, use your resources, use your resources. That translates to anything.
Right.
Use your resources. Your attorney and your accountant is your resource.
Absolutely.
Valuable resources. So use them.
Well, and I think women in business with you are your resources. And you get trapped in this, like, I don't want her to know that I don't know, but I don't know. But, oh, my God. And I find it all the time because I'm like, people say, if I say something like, well, I didn't know that, they say, what? You're a doctor. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That doesn't qualify anybody for anything,
No.
Like I can give you my educational opinion on some theories that I learned,
Right.
But in reality, I don't know how to run a business. I don't know how to set things up. What I do know is what I've learned along the way, right?
Absolutely.
I've learned we have to get things done before a set time in the morning, right? Or it's not going to get done all day. Or if I start, answering email, I might not stop until my husband's like, hey, you've been sitting there for 2.5 hours now. You want to do something else? And I'm like, no, I want to get all these emails done.
Yeah.
But I would zombie it for the rest of the day if I did that.
I'm telling you, the time change was this last weekend.
Oh.
And we didn't reset the alarm in our bedroom. So I wake up and I normally wake up anywhere between 3 and 4:30. That's just
Which is crazy. Let me just
I know
add,
it
like,
is crazy. But I've done so early jobs for like so many decades that's my internal clock. But I do go to bed early.
Yes.
Because I am one person who loves their sleep. And so I got up and it's like, I'm like, oh, 3 o'clock, we're good, we're going. Got my coffee, I'm answering emails. And before I know it, I look at the clock and it's only 3:30 and I'm like, wait, what?
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, I've been up since 2 o'clock in the morning. But I kid you not, I started at probably by the time I got coffee and settled and actually doing it, started probably at 2:30 in the morning. I did not finish emails until 5:30 in the morning,
Oh
3
yeah.
hours of my morning, and that was nothing more than, "Okay, I need to answer this email," categorizing them, who needs to take care of what, so that everyone has their thing of who's taking care of what email, and then actually not only answering the email, but like, "Oh, you need this? I'm gonna go ahead and do it right now. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna send you the invoice, and I'm gonna plan it so that when I get to the shop, we're gonna ship it out and we're good." All of that takes time,
It
and that's a
does.
daily thing, and it's like, if we gave ourselves only 8 hours a day, say, "Okay, you have 8 hours," and I spent 3 hours of it just on this email, we'd never have a business.
Oh no.
No.
No, definitely
So
not.
guess when that happens?
At 2 o'clock in the morning.
2 o'clock in the morning, yeah,
Yeah.
or like you, 8 or 10 hours on the phone every day.
Right.
That's not because not you're sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day. No, this is because you're running around town, you're doing things, you're doing this. Oh, you're in the grocery store, you're answering a phone call.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
all the time.
And when we're shopping and we're driving to Springfield, I'm doing my social media or I'm answering emails or I'm making phone calls or I'm, creating menus or yeah, absolutely. I'm on this phone 8 to 10 hours a day. And really that was it. I'm pretty proud of myself that that's my average.
It's
Like I thought I was like glued to the thing 24/7,
right,
which is exactly how you feel.
right.
Um, which is why a lot of people do find their business so personal. Like, this is my life. This
Yeah,
is my baby. And you connect it to success and failure. When in
absolutely.
reality, it's not.
Right.
It's really not.
It actually is all success. If you're doing something that you've set your heart out to do, then isn't that what makes you successful is having the freedom to do that and doing it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know, but I just think starting a business is a huge, huge endeavor. It's nothing that's taken lightly. And I think people who have businesses and they know that, and when you say, I'm starting a business, they're like so excited for you because it's the beginning. And they're
Right.
going to ask you a lot of questions, and they're going to ask you questions you can't answer.
Yep.
And was it you and I who was talking about imposter syndrome?
Yes. Yes, we
Yes.
did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's like you feel like, oh, I have to have all the answers for that. People with my business, we're doing an infusion business. They're asking me all kinds of questions, and I'm like, I don't have an answer for you. I'm still
Mhm.
working with the menus from the pharmacy of what we can legally give in this state, and what we can combine together. And it's like, but they're asking questions like I have all the answers, and it's like, I don't,
No.
know, and it's okay. Like, it's okay.
It's okay not to,
Yeah.
but it's hard not to.
Yes.
And you start to doubt yourself. And imposter syndrome is real,
Yes, it is.
real, real. And we talked about it last week because when we went to BNI together, I said, I always feel this imposter syndrome. I live it because I'm just waiting for somebody to be like, well, you're fake. You're so stupid. You don't know anything about running a business. You think you're so smart because you have some doctorate degree, but in reality, you're stupid. And then I'm like, oh my God, you figured me out, right? Because I do feel that way. And every single step of the way of running a business, I've just learned, and a lot of times trial and error, and like, oh, that's not going to work. And then some days you have, oh, look, we got it. We rocked this.
Right.
We did
Right.
it. We did it. We did it. Okay, now how can we improve on it better?
Right.
So I have trouble with just living through that one moment of success because I'm like, it worked this time. How do I get better?
I know.
Right? Yeah.
And it's like you have to play games. But you think about CEOs of like
Mm.
companies. Do you think they have it all together? Do you think they have all the answers?
Heck no.
They look completely put together. These people are
Right.
making millions of dollars. They have people chauffeuring them around. But I honestly feel like they have to have even a smidge of
Yeah.
imposter syndrome because there's no way they can have all the answers or know all of those things.
No.
They were put there because they have a skill and a skill set that is extremely important to that company. And so,
Correct.
guess what? We as business owners have a skill and a skill set that is very important that allows us to do what we want to do.
Right.
We don't have the answers for it all.
No.
So, and it's, yeah.
I was even thinking as you said that, like they have this skill for the company that somebody who's listening to this is like, oh, or they know somebody who knows somebody. Well, yeah, maybe they were put in there because they know somebody, which makes imposter syndrome even more real.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
oh my God, what if they find out that I'm only here because, and what if people find out that I'm making a podcast only because I know you and you have your own podcast room? Like, oh my gosh, they're going to know I have no idea about running a podcast, which I don't. So my resources are Whit. I
Whitmore.
absolutely love
That's
him.
right. That's
Yes,
right.
yes.
Well, but do you think I know anything about podcasting?
I don't know. You have a whole room. You look
Yeah.
always prepared. You
Yeah.
always look together. You look
Wow.
organized. And
Yeah.
so somebody seeing you from the outside would think that for sure. So let me tell you, you look like you got it all together, girl.
Okay, well, I don't. And there's half the time I'm like, I don't even know I don't even know if I have anything that anyone wants to hear. And and I have that Branson podcast. And I'm like, does anyone even want to hear me?
Yeah.
Like, do people want to listen to me? I don't even listen to myself. So
Yes.
why would anybody else want to listen? I don't know. Do I have anything to say? I don't know. But here I am doing it, and it's like, whatever.
Right.
We'll just see where it goes.
And I think for us, it's therapeutic to get to talk to each other.
Yes.
And so I think that's why we invite other women. Just come in and talk with us. Go have coffee with us. Just see that being a woman in business is difficult.
I know.
You might look all together, you might look scattered, you might look whatever, but it's just hard. But it makes it livable, more enjoyable if you realize, oh, she doesn't have it all together either.
Yeah.
Or, oh, she asks these questions. Or I can answer a question for her. Maybe she can answer a question for
Yeah.
me.
I think about meeting Ginger last week.
Yes.
And I was so touched when she said, we're like, what brought you to Branson? And she's like, well, I don't want to bring down the vibe in the room, but I'm a widower and I'm a widow. And I'm like, what kind of a brave person goes through that kind of event with young children,
Right.
gets up, moves across the country for a whole new start? You are like super person. Like you
Absolutely.
have got something in you that is a very strong personality trait. And I was just thinking about her going, oh my God, if she can do it, we can do this. We
Yeah.
can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got it. Like she started from scratch.
Yes.
Oh, I think we've started from scratch too. How many times have we been completely knocked down? It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, yes, we're just going to keep on going.
Right. Right.
Because that's what you do.
Oh, you do. You
Yeah.
do. And sometimes you actually lay in bed for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You're like, I'm not getting up today. I'm not even speaking today. Ugh, here we
Don't
go.
you hate it when like you're in a bad mood and you want to just like revel in that bad mood, but
Yeah.
you've got to talk to somebody on the phone and you got to be all chipper and happy, and then you're like, dang it, I don't even get a minute to just have my pity party.
No,
I don't even have time to my own pity party.
no, no. I could probably thank my dad for that. We drove up to St. Louis and forgot medicine, and we had to drive back. And I was so mad at myself. And my dad's like, "Well, I'll ride with you, and it's late at night." And I'm like, "Well, you can ride with me, but I'm angry with myself." And he's like, "All right, well, if you need to get it out." And so he gets in the car, and I'm like, "Dana, you're so stupid. I hate you, blah, blah, blah." And my dad goes, "Look, if you're going to be doing this, you can just let me out of the car. We're not doing this, right?" I'm like, "Dad, I haven't even got to the stop sign yet." And he's like, "Well, I'm not listening to this the whole way." And I said, "I told you I was going to do this." He's like, "Well, you're better than this. I'm not listening to it. Let's talk about something else." And then I thought, well, isn't that true? Like, if
Yeah.
we let ourselves stay in this little pity party, we might get stuck there for a little while, and we don't want to be, right?
Yeah,
Because
no.
there's nothing that we can do there. Like, nothing's going to get better wallowing
Nope.
in that,
Nope.
even though you think,
I
I want to
know.
hang out here for a while. And
I
you even
know.
acknowledge it, like I
Oh,
did to my
yeah.
dad. Like, I'm going to hang out here for a while, and he doesn't even let me get to the stop sign.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's what we need with each other. Like, I'm not going to let you
Maybe,
stay
yeah.
there.
I am so excited. I mean, I know we've talked about this Facebook group, the women's business. I don't even
Oh,
know what it's
yes.
called. But I'm telling you, because I've checked a few times, like there's really no one posting on it. I'm like, because you know what first post I'm going to be? When I get that stinking logo for this podcast done,
Yes.
I'm posting it, and we're going to post a link to all of our podcasts because I want to have a community here within the Branson area of business women because we need each other.
I would agree,
Yeah,
100%.
I am so excited. And Satira is the one who started all of that. So I'm like, oh, yeah.
And she's a strong
Oh,
businesswoman
she
too.
is. She is. So I'm excited about that whole thing. We have to have a community. And again, using your resources, talk to other people who are in business and how do they handle situations? And if we're able as women to have transparency with one another and not have to worry about feeling like an imposter, oh my gosh, that would be such a relief.
That would be a success.
Yes.
Just that. Just
Yes.
feeling like okay, I have a group I can talk to and I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to walk away like, well, she's the stupidest person on earth, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Because if we walk away thinking those things, we're going to be like, it's never going to be successful, because if we can't be transparent with one another, then what the heck,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Well, that would be sad. A
Right.
very sad story. Oh, good. I'm looking at the time because I'm like, okay, Whitmore's always like, you get 30 minutes, 30 minutes.
Oh,
We
I
still have
know.
like 4 minutes, so we're
Oh,
good.
nice. I love how he keeps us track. And I love that he wants to start his own business. And he
Yeah.
looked to us to say, where do I start? Like step
Yeah.
one, and like, we haven't talked about that. Maybe that is something for not just women, but younger people who want to start their own business. I've even talked to my son about it. He's like, I don't even want to do that. That's too much, too much. Is it too much? Do you know what the steps are? And is it something that you want to do? So that might be something for us to look at in a future podcast.
Yeah.
Like, here's step one. If you really want to start your own business,
I think so.
yeah,
Because just getting the LLC, that's just one thing.
right,
Now you have to have your articles of organization.
mhm,
And everyone's like, wait, what?
right.
Yeah,
What
no.
is
Like,
that?
how is your business going to be organized? And you can't even get a business bank account unless you have your articles of organization already done.
No, you can't.
So it's like, yeah, so just go see your attorney and your thing. Okay, well, no, but there's more to that than just that. And it makes you to have a very clear vision of what is the purpose of your business. You need to have a business plan. Absolutely. You need to have projections of like, well, can I really make money in this? And because if you're going to go for any kind of financing, whether it's a grant or not, they want to know your business plan.
They do.
And you're going to have all this data. And just to get started, it's so much work. I've been on that infusion business for 4 weeks now, working hot and heavy, and I'm still not even ready to get enough data to give to the guy to build the website. I mean, it's just, wow, it's a lot of legwork to even get to that point. So,
And you know what you're doing because you've started many businesses
yeah.
and you know where to start and what to do. So for somebody who's starting, like, here's start one, and then you're going to learn as you get to step two, and then you're going to keep learning and then
Yeah.
get to step three. And you might even be able to make some money, and suddenly you're like, oh, I'm on step four. Oh, wait a minute, I have to go back to step three because I forgot that part.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I think that's how running a business is as well.
Yeah,
If you
so-
wait till you have everything in a row and you know everything about every part of it,
Oh,
you'll never start a business.
you'll never start a business. No.
No.
No, absolutely not. Well, let's make that a goal then. Let's come
Okay.
up with some tips for the actual beginning of how you get your business going. And I mean, like some realistic steps, like, where do you find your resources for articles of organization? Oh, where do you find when you go to apply for your LLC, it wants to know what is the purpose of your LLC? Well, I'm telling you, I came up with this whole thing and I'm like, I'm just going to Google this.
Yeah.
I was just like, do whatever is lawful in the state of Missouri type of thing. And you're like, my God, I was way overthinking that.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. But if you don't know,
You don't know.
you don't know. Like Whitmore's asking me, he started his own LLC at 18.
Right.
And he's like, what do I put for this? And I'm like, oh, I gotcha. And
Right.
he's like, because he was doing the same thing, overthinking it. And I'm like, no, this is what we're going to put. And he goes, oh my gosh. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
But not every 18-year-old has a mom who's run businesses and started
Right.
businesses.
Right.
So how do we help those 18-year-olds start a business
Yeah.
or think about it in the terms of like, I really can do this. I absolutely can.
Absolutely, you can. And not only that, but how many younger adults even know what resources are out there or where to look or even that they should be looking?
Right.
They don't know. And I remember, I'll end on this. We went to Flaming Margaritas yesterday, which was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember Satira had talked about the young man who owns this. He's in his 20s and he started this whole business in his 20s. And it's like, wow, okay, he did it, but he
Yep.
had to have resources along the way. So, okay, we got to wrap it up. Whitmore's giving me the finger, like, wrap it up. So, okay.
Wait,
Well,
is that the right finger, the wrap-up finger?
it
or
was
is
the
that-
wrap up finger.
Oh,
It wasn't
okay.
the happy
I was
finger.
worried when you said that. I'm like, oh, God.
Right. All right. Well, we will come back next week and we will talk a little bit more about the basics of getting your business going.
I think that sounds fun.
Okay, great.
Thank
Have a
you.
great afternoon.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.